it's not normal to talk about your identity in relation to your teaching and learning. There's this mantra of students first, which of course I believe in, but it almost at times becomes this message that eclipses anything about who the teacher might be.
Over 80% of K through 12 teachers are white middle-class women. Study after study shows that the ability to identify with and connect to teachers are imperative for the success of many students of color. As an alumnus of Stanford University, I've encountered some of the brightest individuals in the world who are interested in going back to their communities as teachers. These are intelligent Black, brown, and Asian students, many from working class backgrounds, who want to empower the next generation.
But I chose Stanford because I liked their mission statement, how they talked about social justice and really trying to decrease, the achievement gap.
I remember within my first few weeks telling my friends back home at Tufts, this place is amazing. Like, people care about doing the right thing, and people just want to work together.
When I first came to STEP, I was super excited. Like that first week I was calling home and I'm like, Mom, we did this, we did that. Like I love this program. But I think that faded away pretty quickly just because there weren't that many people who looked like me.
I think there were a lot of small moments of surprise in what I was getting myself into, and I sort of just let a lot of them slide because I thought that on the whole it was a really great program and a really great place to be.
STEP was almost exactly what I expected. I walked into Stanford thinking that I would be around my peers would be pretty much the same as who I'd been with in Oakland. But when I walked in and looked around, and I totally made presumptions and assumptions just based on race, actually, looking around the room. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to get an excellent training. I'm going to learn how to, create curriculum and become the best teacher that I can possibly be. But the social justice stuff, I didn't think I would have a lot of conversations with my peers.
Some things that surprised me were I was very surprised by the lack of what I felt lack of race, discussions about race, ethnicity, and those type of things that lead to social inequities. We talked about that in Equity and Democracy, but honestly I felt that class did nothing to address the real issues that exist in our society and in the education world around race and ethnicity.
The first thought I had when coming in through the doors at Sarah's were like, wow, there are a lot of white people here. There are not many people who look like me here. And that was further alienating for me because in undergrad I was able to surround myself with individuals who thought like me, who looked like me, who had similar struggles to me, and I was very disillusioned to see that that was not going to be the case here in STEP. So that kind of framed my thinking as far as like my whole experience.
Because of the disparities of privilege, they were constantly in my face. And so it quickly, that enthusiasm that I initially felt quickly faded.
Like, to be frank, I don't think I've ever been around so many white people in my life. And I was like, that's okay, I'm gonna have to get used to this. All of my teachers were white. And it wasn't until a few weeks later, I think into E&D, that I really thought about that. I was like, all of my teachers were white. And I grew up in a majority-minority city and majority-minority school, and I was like, I don't think I've had one single teacher of color other than once in high school, and I think it was for math. And that just blew my mind. I was like, where are all the teachers of color? Why aren't they teaching in these areas? And why aren't they in STEP?
I think there were far and few between people who had similar background experiences to me. And I think that I looked pretty hard for people who I could relate to, and it never really happened. But I think I realized pretty early on that it was a futile effort to look for any sort of reflection of who I am in the faculty or the instructors or even my classmates.
But I don't think STEP gave me the opportunity to really speak and engage with those students. I think I was able to interact with a few of them, but I think I was only able to interact with those who found it their duty to be equally as vocal as I was. And I think there were many individuals who did look like me who somehow felt quieted and were unable to speak up about their struggles. So if there were more individuals that had similar life experiences to me, I think my experience in STEP has kind of allowed us to not kind of join forces.
To be honest, I don't even know if my identity was ever a factor in STEP. Like, it just, to me, I felt like it just didn't matter what experiences I came in with or anything like that.
I don't know, looking back, it seems almost as if I had such a constant struggle with internalized racism. And that was a result of a lot of different things, just not STEP. But as a result, my confidence really lowered.
We didn't really talk about our identities so much as we talked about the kids. So I have students talk more about the STEP, talk about their identities and like what we're bringing, because that's what you bring to the classroom. Like you bring all of you and your some experiences to the classroom, and you have to negotiate that, and you have to be aware of that as well as your students, and make it work in service for the students.
Majority, I think, of the STEP population doesn't really relate to my background and where I'm coming from a low-income community, coming from poor schools, but the fact that I was able to find a couple people was nice. At the same time, though, I felt like that identity wasn't valued within classes on a larger scale.
So it wasn't like how has your background and your experiences shaped you in your teaching, but it was more of we're learning about African American vernacular, so let's ask the African American student.
I think if my identity were split up into little bits and pieces, there are people who had some parts of my identity in various ways. I don't feel like I met someone with the exact same like life experiences or backgrounds as me. Me kind of having to build different spaces with different people who fit into like those different identities.
I can think of a few times when I went in and I had a problem, and I felt like by the end of the meeting it had been flipped. And so all of a sudden I felt like there was something that I was doing wrong, or this was a problem that I was the only person dealing with, or that was specific to me. And it took me a long time to realize that this is something that's reoccurring. And then there were a lot of times when I felt like I was struggling with problems such as my identity or my race, or just again like the privilege or lack thereof. And I needed someone to talk to, and my only option was a white Caucasian female with privilege. And so even if there was an opportunity for me to speak or to have my problems addressed, a lot of times I didn't feel comfortable, or I wasn't able to open up and really speak about them.
I've had, a professor blatantly tell me, like stop talking about theory. Like, that's theory. That's not real life. I think that sends a pretty clear message that my identity as X, Y, or Z isn't important, and the ways that I try to make sense of my identity through research and theory isn't important.
I think it made me feel like the experience I was bringing into STEP was somehow unhelpful to everybody else because somehow because other people didn't have my knowledge, and so by me sharing my knowledge, I'm just making other people feel bad. So that was troublesome to me, because not only was did some people in midway through STEP think it was okay to call immigration services on their students, but other people thought it was okay to kind of make me feel bad about my experiences working with this population and my experience and knowledge as to like the injustice around the issue and my feelings about the issue. Someone thought it was okay to say your feelings about being upset about this issue are invalid.
I came into STEP thinking that other teachers like myself were coming in to change the world. They wanted to specifically to get into the classrooms that needed the most help. Majority, minority, low-income communities, poor schools, right, that need the best teachers. And I thought, here's what we're doing at STEP. We're training the best teachers to want to do that. And I realized that, oh, actually, not too many people are trying to go into these schools that need the most help. And for me, as someone who came from a poor background, who wants to go back into help in poor backgrounds, I feel like that identity wasn't valued because I saw everyone else was not going back to those places that needed help.
I think it gave me some tangible strategies that I could use, but to this day, I think that in terms of working in high needs schools, I'm bringing in different experiences to help me with that. Like STEP, they taught me strategies and how to control or maintain a particular classroom environment instead of, I don't know, a liberating environment.
It was actually really hard. I think this year has been one of the most mentally and emotionally challenging years for me. I think STEP advertised this as a social justice program, or they used the term social justice because it was trendy, but I didn't get as much of that as I had anticipated. And I think that was the biggest letdown in this program. I don't really feel comfortable to go into a high needs school and help my students.
You know, I don't really know if I have any concrete lessons that I've taken away from STEP with regard to social justice. I think that we've definitely broken the ice on some of these topics and started to discuss what social justice means, but there's this huge gulf between the beginnings of those conversations in equity and democracy and actually how I practice those things in my classroom.
So it did prepare me in that it made me stick to my guns a lot more, because I felt like I was being I felt like there were so many other individuals who shared ideas not like me that I had to become a voice of kind of the ideas that I did have. So in many ways, STEP allowed me to solidify that, but I don't think that was the best environment for that.
STEP, the program, I think it's prepared me as a teacher. I feel ready going into my to my first year of teaching. However, I do not feel like STEP prepares people to teach in low-income, majority minority schools that need the most help, right?
And so I feel like there was a lot of disconnect with me and my students. And then also I felt like there was a certain way that a teacher had to be. So I had to dress a certain way, I had to look a certain way, I had to speak like my peers. And because of that, I also felt like it created a disconnect between me and my students, because they couldn't see that we had similar backgrounds, or that I could relate and I had been through some of the same experiences as them.
Honestly, I felt that my identity and my background was not valued all the time, and I felt that I didn't have the chance to kind of share it out and speak openly and honestly about where I was coming from. I feel like those type of conversations about backgrounds and why you're here to teach, we didn't have them, and I think those are so important to that.
I feel like there wasn't a safe space made for us to bring in personal experiences without it being ridiculed or kind of looked down upon, because we didn't have a reading or something to back it up.
A concern I have about STEP is the lack of diversity in faculty and staff. I think I share that sentiment with many other people here. I also am concerned about the schools that we're going to and the schools that people graduating from STEP aspire to go to.
I really enjoyed that class. I still say that having it as a 2-week in-between class is not a good idea. It should be a thread that is talked about.
I think I would have really appreciated a space to talk about what we were all coming in with. I think that's one of the overarching themes for me in this year is that I felt like it was just assumed that we were all, even though they said we weren't, I just felt like it was assumed that we were all kind of on the same page, starting from the same place, and like this blank slate that the program could kind of like infuse with their own ideology, and not really acknowledging what experiences we came in with.
But I feel like we can't cut short that kind of awareness that is only cultivated through discourse. That dialogue did not happen nearly as much as I feel it should have during STEP. If we're going to talk about stereotype threat, that needs to happen in a segment that's more than the allotted 10 minutes.
I would definitely like to have more faculty of color. I think that was a huge thing for me, just because you need that extra support. And I don't know why, but it's just something about sitting in the classroom and having a teacher that looks like you that makes that lesson that much more important, or makes you value those words so much more. I think there needs to be a more diverse range of teachings and strategies. A lot of the strategies that are crafted, I felt they were crafted for students with higher socioeconomic statuses, and there was no variation. Definitely more teachers of color, students of color would be nice. And also more of a focus on social justice.
Hey Pete, why do we even write songs like this, man? People ain't gonna change. Oh, I don't know, Bill. You know, there might be somebody out there listening, man. You never can tell, you know?
To the graduating class of 2000 whatever, congratulations past due, you deserve better. Looking dapper in that cap and that gown. You got fam snapping flicks, clapping loud in the back of the crowd. Now the band playing Pomp and Circumstance got you amped, feeling like a champ. Class is out of session at last. You've been patiently waiting, 12 years in the making. Anybody who was doubted you was sadly mistaken. With the paper with your name in Old English for the taking, so moms can bring it home to frame it and display it with the grade point average hanging over your head. Brother, sister, please don't believe the bullshit they said. Fuck a pledge of allegiance and arrogant teachers, but peace to the people who don't ever preach up in the front of a classroom all day long, planting seeds of revolution. We dedicate this song. It goes 1 for the student who refuses to submit, and 2 for the teachers who are underpaid as shit. It's the next generation of miseducated youth who demonstrate the truth and manage to make it through. It goes 3 for the strikes giving young bloods life, and 4 for the years you spent stifled inside. It's the next generation of miseducated youth. Next time ask them for proof. Now to the knuckleheads clowning in the back of the class, to the teacher's pet monkey in the front kissing ass, but most of all everyone else who sat between them and questioned all the falsehoods your teachers believe in. Up in hallways heard it in locker territorialism, up in assemblies nobody would listen. Instead rock the mixtape and Walkman discreet with the headphones threaded from the pocket through the sleeve. You received education through the music you heard. Cafeteria tables enabled beats to occur where students separated in cliques. The state of the nation manifested up in high school politics. History repeated, you read it to regurgitate. Slave owning dead white men quotes. You know they made curriculums designed to make obedient drones. Bring your paper but please leave your lyrics at home. It goes 1 for the student who refuses to submit, and 2 for the teachers who are underpaid as shit. It's the next generation of miseducated youth who demonstrate the truth and manage to make it through. It goes 3 for the strikes giving young bloods life, and 4 for the years you spent stifled inside. It's the next generation of miseducated youth. Next time ask them for proof. Hey yo, we made it. 45 caliber proof, and your teachers don't believe that you can handle the truth. But the truth is these suits can't stand it when you begin to question the conditions and backwards traditions as you recognize the threshold of negative stress. The crossroad between complete failure and success is so necessary. You pay attention in class, never tell you the conditions in which to apply to math. Only 65% of your peers freshman year is still here, and half that total will move on. But 3 out of 4 will drop out in 2 years. Add it up and it equals some shit has gone wrong. Now the snakes gave the education budget roll back. No child left behind is just a backdoor trap. As you stand at the summit and future facing the wind. Now it's time to let your true education begin. It goes